You're listening to Thrill Talk, where we discuss business, life, and everything else we like. Produced in Tucson, Arizona, and brought to you by Team Integrity Homes and the Military PCS Referral Network. Here's Aaron and Chase.
All right, Mr. Wilson, we are back at it again.
That's right.
How's everything going?
You know what? Pretty fantastic. Been busy.
Very busy or a little bit busy?
Busy.
Like what?
One-legged man in a butt-kicking contest.
Talented.
Yes.
All right, we've got a guest today. Who are we with?
Mr. Chad Utt. So
Two
I've known
T's.
Chad for
Two
and
T's.
I've known Chad for a little while here.
How long?
A couple years.
Sweet.
Couple years. Yeah, I know he's. I met him actually in real estate. He was an agent, and then he kind of went away for a little while, and he came back.
He's got a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
Something that I'd like to do.
Yeah, and I want to get to know a little bit more about these stories. So,
Sweet.
all right.
Chad?
Yes,
Who is Chad?
that's me.
Give me your background. Where born, raised, your 30,000-foot view of your life, and then we will start to pick it apart.
Okay, I can do that. Born and raised everywhere, a military brat.
Okay.
So-
What branch?
My dad was Air Force. Born in Alaska, moved to a few different states, spent 4 years in Germany, ended up high school graduation here in Tucson
Where'd you graduate from?
from Amphi.
Nice. Good old Amphi.
Yeah.
Good old Amphi. So, graduated, and then what?
I went to NAU for a brief moment.
See, I did not know that.
I didn't.
Man, this could lead a very.
I didn't stay
very-
long. I had a good time up there. Joined
Dude.
a fraternity, and
Everybody has a good time at NAU
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's nothing else to do.
well, I had a full ride up there, so I went up and had a good time.
For basketball, or
Yeah, absolutely.
for those of you not listening, Chad and I both are not the tallest individuals on this planet.
No. Basketball was not. It was an academic scholarship.
Nice. So we went up there.
Yeah, I went up there, spent a semester, had kind of not a family, but a friend situation where it wasn't good. One of my best friends passed away.
Okay.
So I took that and what I learned from his passing and how it happened and decided to step up. And I went to the Navy recruiter, and 19 days later, I was in boot camp in Florida.
In Florida. So they sent you to the East Coast.
Yeah, actually, it was a co-ed boot camp at the time.
Wow.
So, yeah, interesting.
Interesting. So,
That could go so many directions here.
So
too.
what- yeah, right.
Yeah,
I was
well-
Air
well-
Force, so we didn't have co-ed. So.
Yeah, we'll skip the co-ed part. And,
so what year did you go to boot camp?
1992.
Okay. And then got out of boot camp, and then what?
I did a little schooling there in Florida and then took a drive to the West Coast because I was stationed in Alameda, the USS Abraham Lincoln,
Nice.
CVN 72 aircraft carrier.
And what did you do when you got on the carrier?
Oh, my goodness, it was crazy. So I showed up walking, got out of the taxi with my sea bag, and without a job. I was unrated because I joined so quickly.
Okay.
I didn't get processed with an actual job.
Basically, you had a date and a location.
Yeah, I had a location. I showed up. There's 6,000 people that work on that live on that ship,
Holy
and it was
cow.
just
Floating town.
a float. Yeah, it was a floating city. So I ended up getting processed to work the flight deck.
Okay. So what did that look like? What did you do on the flight deck?
Quickly, it was in port. There's not a lot to do, but it was a war zone time.
Okay.
So we at the time that I joined, we were quickly getting the flight deck ready for ops to go out in the water for just maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks
Okay.
to get prepping for the Persian Gulf.
Okay.
So we did that for the first couple months, and then we were gone.
So how long were you gone for on your first deployment?
It was 6 months, a little over 6 months.
I'm going to rewind a little bit here. So I know that you guys do a lot of things with, kind of different color shirts. and whatnot.
Yeah, on the flight deck you do. Yeah,
And to me, that's very intriguing because everybody's got their own specific job,
Mm-hmm.
and I know at a very high level. So, what color shirt did you have? And kind of explain a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. On the flight deck, there's a lot of different jobs, all very important to, their specific tasks. I was a yellow shirt. Actually, I started out as a blue shirt. So I was in V1, Division V1. So we maintained the flight deck. We directed the airplanes. We tied the airplanes down. We taxied the airplanes. We towed them with the tractors. Everybody doing something different to make sure all flight deck operations run smoothly because it's very serious up there. Millions.
Well, and you're like, what's different between that and everything else is you're moving.
Yeah, we're moving at the same time. We're listing, we're rocking back and forth. So there's a lot of times where you'll be sitting on a tractor, and somebody's directing you as you're towing an airplane, and then you have to stop and hold the brakes because we're listing so far. You don't want to roll over the edge with the airplane.
Oh my gosh!
So it was interesting. A lot of it was, and at the time I was 19 years old. So you learn about life real fast.
Oh, I bet. I bet. So, how long was your first deployment? You said
6 months.
Gotcha. And where'd you guys go or area?
Our intention was to be in the Gulf during the no-fly zone. We headed out that way, stopped for a week in Hong Kong.
Okay.
So we got to have a little leisure there, and then we made our way to the Gulf.
So how long were you at sea before you touched land from when you left the West Coast to your first location?
I think before we got to Hong Kong, maybe 40 days.
Just 40 days at sea, nothing else.
Yeah, 40 days, aircraft carrier, 6,000 guys, because it was a nuclear reactor powered aircraft carrier.
So not co-ed.
No, we had, there was one female COD pilot. She would bring in our mail. The C-135s would land, not 135s, C-130s? I don't remember what they were. But she would bring in our mail, and, life would stop when she got out of the plane.
Man, oh, man.
Oh, my gosh. So that in itself is fascinating to me. So you are on this boat.
This floating
right?
mail city.
And like someone takes off from land. They're like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to go find this aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean and drop off some mail.
Yeah, that's kind of how it worked, yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So got to Hong Kong.
Yeah, we spent a little time in Hong Kong. We were too big to pull in, so we'd take little ferries to get in.
Okay.
And spent, at the time it was flight deck, hazardous duty pay, war zone pay, all this extra pay that we're getting, and we can't spend it. So we had a great time.
So you get off. No. I'm assuming no beer on the aircraft carrier.
No beer on the aircraft carrier. But we were allowed, kind of like you're on a cruise and you make excursion plans. So we were allowed to book hotels and whatever we wanted to do.
So you guys could not get off the aircraft carrier fast enough on day 40.
Absolutely not. And 6,000 guys. So
Yeah.
a ferry that takes a couple hundred at a time. Certain people got off faster, officers, obviously.
Yeah.
But
That would have been a sight to see.
yeah,
Just booking it off.
Who gets stuck staying on the...
I didn't think about.
on
Yeah,
the
they
ship?
don't. They
I
don't
mean,
leave
it's
it
just like-
unoccupied.
you have
Yeah.
you have duty days. So we were there in port for 7 days. So there might have been a day that you had to come back and spend 24 hours doing
Gotcha.
whatever it is your job was. I think I remember Hong Kong. I did not have a duty day. A lot of us on the flight deck were given some extra benefits
Little Liberty.
because we worked 18-hour days. So it was tough.
So how long in the Navy?
Active duty, 2 years.
Okay. And then did you do reserves after that, or what did you do?
Yeah, I had at the time the enlistment. I had to do 6-year reserves.
Okay.
But the Navy pulled out of where I was at
Gotcha.
in Northern California, so I transferred over to Air Force Reserves.
Gotcha. And then what did you do in the Air Force Reserves?
I loaded airplanes.
Gotcha.
You know what's funny? I
what
did
you
not
did.
know that. I did too.
Yeah.
That was my very first job in the Air Force.
Yep. Build pallets, wrap them up, load planes.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah, we've had that conversation numerous times.
462. Well, yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
I mean, I wouldn't really trust any of you loading weapons.
That's what's crazy, especially at like 18 for me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Especially if you knew me
crazy.
before.
So did some time in California. And then where did you end up after that?
Well, when I got out of the Navy, I was in California. I didn't know anybody. So I came back to Tucson for a minute, thought about going back to college, met up with some old friends, realized they're going down the same path that I don't want to be at.
Yeah.
The reason why I left.
Well, and how much you've seen since.
Yeah,
know.
the things that I saw in the Navy woke me up, had me grow up a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent only 3 weeks back down in Tucson and went back to California.
Do you mind me asking, like you talk about it, and I can relate to it as well, but how do you feel that you grew up in that short time span? Because, I mean, I can relate to it, but I want to hear it from you.
Sure. I think when you're put in a position where you have no friends, no family, especially at a young age, at 19 that I was when I went in, you're forced to grow up. You now have bills. You now have specific job duties. You can't rely on anybody else besides yourself. And once you are put in a position to rely on yourself solely for everything, then it's different take on life.
I think sink or swim. No pun intended on that.
It is. It's true.
But
It
is true.
It is true. Sink or swim.
You're gonna have to adapt to that. So
And it's a whole nother lifestyle as opposed to having family and close friends around, doing a job at the mall or whatever. This is completely different, where millions and millions of dollars are in your hands.
you know what? And that was the one thing that I noticed. I came back from Spain, and I noticed, because I was in the munitions field, loading nuclear weapons and whatnot. And then I came back, and this is an era, I think, very similar time frame. What time frame was this that you were in the military?
Early 90s.
Okay, so, and that was me too, in late 80s, early 90s. And I came back, and this is pre-cell phone era, internet era, and whatnot. So therefore, I totally disconnected from friends because it was like $50 or like $8 a minute to call home.
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
sorry, buddies, but I don't get paid enough to do that. So I came back, and I was pretty excited to get back with my friends. And you're right, you see what they're doing it or not doing. And you're like, man, I've got all these experiences and these things that I've seen, and and I felt kind of distant as well.
Yeah.
Even back in the element of my friends, because I'm like, I can't even have conversations because I'm not better than them, but it's just I just had more experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good thing. The military helps you grow up and grow up quick, which a lot of people aren't doing these days.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's very important I think it's very important for everybody to at least do a couple of years in the service.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. You just get a whole new element on life a little bit.
Yep.
So you were in for a couple of years there, and then how did you transition out of that?
It was tough. I did a couple of jobs. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to be, but I knew I needed structure. So I applied with the state and Department of Corrections.
Gotcha. So now here's the thing, though. You had probably one of the most stressful and dangerous jobs on a flight deck.
Yeah, they say it's the second most dangerous job in
Okay,
the
so now
world.
what did you actually do, though? I mean, because to
On
me
the
it's
flight deck?
intense. Yeah, I know a little bit about
No,
it, but
it's-
for those that don't know what we're talking about, we're talking aircraft that are literally taking off, landing, and
Well-
if they miss a certain time frame, I mean, it's just insane the amount of responsibility.
Imagine an F-14 on a catapult, because everybody's seen an aircraft carrier.
A slingshot.
In the movie. So you got an airplane on, and the F-14s are the heaviest because of their fuel and their weapons load. So I'm standing maybe 20 yards southeast of the airplane that's in afterburners, ducking down, covering my body for about 3 or 4 seconds, waiting for him to take off because it's 180 degrees, and I'm just being burnt. But I can't move.
Is it from the exhaust?
Yeah, from the afterburner. Yeah,
my gosh.
I can't move because my left hand is up, keeping this A6 that's ready to take off afterwards stopped. So as soon as he takes off, I have to turn around, concentrate on this A6, and bring him up to the catapult. So it is bam, bam, bam. A lot of things are all at once. It's 16, 18-hour days, flight ops to flight ops. We didn't, there's people down below decks that would work 12-hour days, but we didn't have that opportunity. So it's exciting to see everything that happens on there. A lot of injuries happen, but a lot of camaraderie. You trust people quickly because you have to. These aircraft are expensive.
And I think that leads to that cohesiveness too that we talk about. There's i.e. brotherhood and whatnot.
Sure.
And so, but yeah, I find it very intriguing that the different jobs, and this is still going on today.
Yeah,
It's not
the exact same thing. You'll still see yellow shirts, blue shirts, red, purple, green. There's nothing that's changed today. Maybe some technology, but you become so close. There was an incident on the flight deck where an F-14 crashed while we were out to sea, and it kind of brought everybody so close that that you have a new family. In your military family. So that was important to have, and taking that forward, it's something I've always wanted to maintain. So after the military, I did go into law enforcement.
So how did you transition into that? What was your mental state in that, and why did you go into law enforcement?
And was that in California?
Yes, California. Yeah, I worked for the state. Transitioning into that, it was very similar. I had to go through an academy, lots of training, so it was similar to the military. I was stationed at a prison that was near my home when we first got out of the academy. So it was one of the same things where it's just in a different environment. You're in a prison. You're dealing with convicted criminals. So I did that for 4 years. But it was the transition. I think for me was easy because I was used to that, the camaraderie, the brotherhood,
The structure.
the
as well.
structure.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah, standards. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that. Actually, I promoted to sergeant in 3.5 years. One of the youngest to promote to sergeant that quickly. But I did that because I had goals. I had no intention of working in a prison for my entire career. So I promoted to sergeant. 2 years later, I promoted out to the streets as a parole agent.
So what was your most exciting time or most intriguing? Yeah, I can see the wheels turning. You guys can't see it, but it's like
There's so many stories I have. I mean, you don't. I mean, you see it on TV, but when it happens in real life, when you're jumping fences and ducking this, and you're actually, there's a lot of cops that will tell you they've never drawn their weapon on duty. It didn't happen. I drew mine probably 3 times a week for 15 years. And what the reason why you're doing that is because something is going on. I was a part of a lot of different gang task force and stuff. So you're not thinking about those things when it's happening. You're just doing because you've been trained to do it.
Yeah.
And then after the fact is when you sit down and like, damn.
That was close.
You know what, though? The anticipation is building for me on how in the world you transition from this into real estate, you know?
Well, you know what? It was kind of a funny thing because as a parole agent, my entire focus was to help these criminals. All the criminals that I worked with had been in prison. So they're big time.
So you've already been in the prison environment, so you get a little bit of that background there. So that's kind of cool. Okay.
So a lot of them, it was drug issues and stuff. So my focus was to try and help these people. And if I could get one success story a year or in 2 years, that was big. That's a win.
Wow.
Because drugs, it's a whole different lifestyle for these guys. So you learn to adapt to each person's personality, whether they're on drugs at the time, with their family, whether they're on drugs or they want the kid to get better or whatever the case is, you adjust within seconds because it's life or death. You don't know. We worked alone, solo, so we'd walk into a house with, a murderer or a guy that assault with a deadly weapon or assault on an officer, whatever the case is, we walk into these homes alone, not knowing what's going on. So you learn to adapt quickly to relate to somebody on their level. And a lot of people don't understand how to do that, and I think it's very important in real estate. That's why I was able to transition into real estate, is because in a split second, you need to know what this person that you're talking to, a client, what their mentality is, their personality, their focus, what's important to them, and then get to their level, not above it, not below it, but get to their level and make sure that they understand. Like in law enforcement, my clients, parolees, had to be important to me. They had to respect me. They had to understand that I cared for what their needs were. It's the same thing in real estate. They need to know that even though if you have 10, 15, 20, 30 clients, 100 clients, whatever the case is, each client wants to know that they're important.
Love
and
it.
they're top of mind. That's why, CRMs and being on this team is so very important. Because if you're able to have a conversation with somebody that you haven't talked to in a month, but you're able to bring up things that you've discussed last month because you have all these notes, that to them, it's showing them that they are top of mind to you, even though you have 50 other clients.
What's funny is we've talked about it about you, Chad, is that, and it all makes sense with this stuff now, is we run off task, right? Like you got so many tasks to do per day and whatnot, and you complete them every day. For you, I remember you talking about it when we first met, was just not an option to not do them.
Well, it's not.
But it goes back to looking at being a parole agent and
That
military
structure,
and
the
stuff.
standards,
It's like you don't, when your life's on the line and little stuff, I'm sure that there's a reason why you guys kept the flight deck clean.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And what anybody else in this world may think would be minute could be life or death for
I'll
someone.
give an example on that, and I know that Chad can relate to this. You look down and you see a washer on the flight deck. That's a huge issue.
It's a big deal. We'd have to do FOD walk downs.
FOD walks are
foreign object damage. So it could be anything. We'd start at the bow, go to the stern. Whatever's on the ground could get into an aircraft intake and blow that engine.
so a washer is a
Which,
big deal.
when we look at in the real estate business side, is you meaning anybody can go, well, that's just a minute task or something to do, but it could have grave consequences down the road.
Absolutely. Every task, and that's why I think I've adapted well to real estate, is important. No matter how little it may be, it's not little to that client. It's big.
Yeah.
It's just something that's another reason why I was saying that I think everybody should join the service. But not everybody is able to adapt and come to a mindset of putting others first.
Yeah.
And you really kind of have to do that.
Yep.
And I think that's the Gemini in me. I've always put other people first.
Nice.
Yeah, we notice that. That is a fact.
So you get licensed, sell real estate for a while, help run a team, all that jazz. And then you get a wild hair. And what
I
happens?
got a wild hair, but to be honest, it had been a wild hair for building over 20 years. 20 years in law enforcement, and I wasn't quite old enough to retire, so it just kind of took a toll. The job does, and you make a decision, a life decision that's going to be best for you.
Yep.
So I resigned from law enforcement and moved back to Tucson, and found real estate. I did well at it for a couple of years, but I still had this itch, a dream, I guess you could say, to own a boat and live on a boat and on the beach. I mean, didn't care where.
Yeah.
So one morning I got online, looked all over the world, found the boat in Puerto Vallarta, flew down there, bought it, flew back, sold everything, and moved to Mexico.
Dude, you became a movie character.
That is awesome. Though.
You became Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that is like that's pretty awesome.
Well, and now granted, it's probably, I know it is different after you live there for a couple years, but I love Mexico.
Yeah.
I just got back from Hawaii, and I would much rather be on the beach in Mexico.
Yeah.
It's just, I love the culture, the people, the food,
Yeah.
everything about it.
Yeah.
Well, not everything about it, but it suits me. So you go down there with the shirt on your back, some money in your pocket, and a boat.
Yep, I did. A couple of suitcases and my golf clubs. I showed up, got on the boat, moved it from a private slip to a bigger marina,
Okay.
plugged it in, and that was my house. It was an older yacht. It was big. It was 46 foot.
Yeah.
So there were some things to do, but it was all teak interior. It was just living the dream. I mean,
Yeah.
I could stop and just look around the boat and look around outside and realize, wow, I followed a dream.
Yeah.
And I'm here.
How long did it take for the honeymoon to wear off?
I don't know, a couple days. when I tried to start the boat, 2 days afterwards, the engine failed.
Yeah.
There's 2 engines, very, very expensive engines. So it's one of those things where something's going to happen, Murphy's Law. So you either adapt or you throw in the towel. So for the next 6 months, I spent a ton of money fixing 2 engines to get that boat functioning, because I decided it was going to be, for me to sustain the lifestyle in Mexico, I needed to have a source of income.
Yeah.
So I was going to do charters. And in order to do that, there was a lot of things I had to do, a lot of relationships I had to make with people that don't speak English, and my Spanish was getting better, but
Yeah.
things like when you go to the Navy or anywhere else, it's sink or swim. So that's what I did there.
So found out very quickly that Mexico does stuff by a different.
They do.
They've got their own guidelines by which they operate.
They do. Yes,
Sometimes.
absolutely. And it's a different culture, and it's a different everything. And I learned quickly. I had a great time in
Yeah.
2 years there. I did some charters. I went to private beaches. I snorkeled and fished, and it just
Some
had
cool
a great
memories.
time. Yeah,
You know what? I was on that charter.
Yep.
Aaron was, yeah.
He took us out to kind of little, secluded
Jalapa.
little,
Jalapa. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we went down there, did a little snorkeling. This at the end, had a phenomenal time, phenomenal memories.
So you were down there for how long total?
Vallarta, 2 years.
Okay. Mexico in general.
2.5.
Okay. What is 1 or 2 top things that you enjoyed the most about living in Mexico for 2.5 years?
I think first and foremost was the people. People said hi or buenos dias or whatever, whether they knew you or not. You existed down there
So the culture down there drastically different than.
drastically.
I remember a post, or at least one of them that you had mentioned that, now that you say that, which I thought was pretty unique.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, you're a foreigner in somebody else's land, but you're not treated like that down there. And maybe some parts of Mexico may be different. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the experiences I had, people were friendly.
That's
and,
awesome.
And they would do anything for you. They give you a shirt off their back, even if they didn't have a shirt. I mean,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
that nice down there.
So we've talked about it a million times. We go down to Mexico and build houses for families that are living in poverty down there, and it's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is like the average income is $35 to $40 a week for the families, and they'll spend half of that to feed us one meal. Like it truly is
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
So moved back up after 2.5 years, and now you have to see Aaron and I every day.
I do, and that's probably the hardest transition I've had since high school.
You know those people I was talking about in
That
Mexico?
long drive to work, looking at us.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So, well, dude.
Well, I am glad to have him back here. I mean, just phenomenal guy. One of the guys with the biggest hearts I know.
Hard worker for sure.
Yes, indeed.
So,
What advice would you have for anybody? I mean, because here's the thing: the way I look at things, you chase a dream, you accomplish a dream, you just got the grit
you've seen a lot.
beyond.
Yeah, I think I don't know if there's one thing, but if you have a dream or anything in life, don't rely on anybody else. Everybody has family, everybody has friends, and that's great. Everybody loves each other. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, if you don't get it done, it's not going to get done. So you need to step up and do what needs to be done to succeed in life. Whether it's following a dream, whether it's a job, whether it's sales or whatever the case is, at the end of the day, you need to wake up and work.
Ownership.
I got one more question. What do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
I will still be an agent. You know what? I've had a good life, So in 5 to 10 years, I imagine money's going to be fine. I'm not concerned about that. It's never really been a concern. If you work, the money will be there. I think being on the golf course once a week, enjoying life and not being so running around and crazy and stressed, and just enjoying life.
Good for you.
Yep. Cool. Well, dude, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Class act, dude.
All right.
And thank you for your service.
100%.
Thank
you
you.
go.
All right. We will be back
That's right.
with a brand new edition or
Done.
episode. All right. Have a great day.
Later.